I think one of the interesting things too in this story, and in the book To Live Again, is the settings that I've utilized. I mean, there couldn't be a greater contrast between two places than maybe Destin, Florida, the entire Emerald Coast down there, and a place like Barber County. That's what Carter is trying to get back to. He, you know, it's difficult to find anybody that I lived in Walton County for 15 years. It's difficult to find anyone that's actually from there. I mean, there are people that were born and raised there, but they're few and far between. And Carter has been able to kind of almost live a make-believe life there, an anonymous life, and all these things have happened to him, and now he really yearns to get back to a place that sort of hasn't changed much. And you know, when you drive through some of these rural places that we have in Alabama, Barber County is one of them, Henry County comes to mind. I can go places today that look exactly like they did when I was a child, and that's a huge difference, because you go down to the coast and everything's different. If you haven't been down there in a year, you may not even know how to get around. So I think it's not only just two places, but it's two completely different civilizations almost. And that's really what Carter wants to do. He's trying desperately to get back to something that's unchanging, that's solid, that he can connect with, and he doesn't have to be held accountable for all of these transgressions that have now piled up on his doorstep and caused him so much grief. The characters in the story are very interesting. The protagonist is a gentleman by the name of Carter Fleming. He grew up in Eufaula, Alabama. He had a construction company. He moved down to the Destin, Fort Walton Beach area very early in life. He's been very successful. He's a strong physical presence as a man. He very singular of purpose, very driven. He's a smart guy, but he understands how to put things together and make deals. And his success, though, in business has not necessarily translated to success in his own personal life. In his mind, I think he's successful in all areas of his life, because he is that kind of man. He is not going to allow himself to think in terms of failure. But he has now come upon some hard times. He's had some bad business deals. He's had an affair blow up in his face, and that has really hurt his standing in the community. His wife of many, many years has thrown him out of the house, and he's just now sort of repairing that damage, and he's in a real state of flux, really, personally and professionally. And that's how the story begins, is he's trying to work these things out, get back on his feet, and regain that confidence that he has had his entire life. One of the other primary characters in the story is Maddie Fleming, which is Carter's wife. Maddie is a lady that has kind of stood by her husband Carter their entire married life. She loved Carter the first time she ever met him. They met when they were in high school, and she has followed him around and given him a fairly long leash to do whatever he wanted to do as far as business and pursuing all of his personal interests, whatnot. She realizes that he runs around, but he's always been pretty discreet about it, and you know, she's tried to just take a positive outlook. It's interesting that Maddie's first cousin was Ruby Moore, who is the antagonist's wife, and the family ties that the two of them shared had a lot to do with how Carter and Red got along in their better days. But now that this affair has become public knowledge and it's just all over the community, it has really embarrassed Maddie, and she alternates between fury and grief, remorse, thinking it's her fault somehow. And now, as the story begins, she's come to the conclusion that what matters most is her family, and to keep her family together, and to try in some way to bring some kind of decent resolution to a very indecent matter. So what we see from Maddie is someone who's just trying to shepherd everyone along and weather the storm. The antagonist in the story, To Live Again, is a guy named Red Moore. Red and Carter have known each other for years. Their wives were first cousins. Red was a little bit older than his wife, Ruby, and Ruby was actually married previously while Red was in the Navy, and she had a son in that marriage. Her first husband died, and then when Ruby and Red got together and got married, Red adopted her son Raymond, and then subsequently they had a daughter of their own. But Raymond has been a problem since he was a child. He's diagnosed with all manner of ADD, and he's hyperactive, and now in his adult life he's become an alcoholic and a drug addict and just a complete ne'er-do-well. The main problem that Red is having to deal with is the fact that when his wife Ruby was dying, he promised her that he would take care of Raymond and try to shepherd him along as best he could, and he can't seem to find any formula for that. Raymond doesn't want to listen. He's really out of control, and some of his out of control nature has fallen upon Carter. So the friction between Carter and Red in the story really revolves around Raymond and what they need to do to get him under control.